Welcome to the award-winning Women in Healthcare Leadership podcast series brought to you by Medscape Education. Our mission is to educate, advocate, and inspire women in healthcare to lift as they rise. Each episode brings you voices of leaders who are breaking barriers and leading the way in advancing women's health. Join our global community of listeners as we hear from her. Ready to be part of the movement? Let's dive in.
Welcome to today's recording of our Hear From Her Women in Healthcare Leadership podcast series. I am thrilled to have with me today two outstanding panelists. I have with me today Lindsay Davies, who is the CEO of QVance. Welcome, Lindsay.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
And I have with me Angela Vollstedt, who is the Global Director of R&D Cell and Gene Therapies Portfolio at Novartis. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to have this conversation today.
Me too. And so I wanted to start off with the very first question, and I will address it to both of you. And Angela, maybe you can start first. We know you're in the pharmaceutical industry, but what really prompted you to enter a career in the field of healthcare?
Well, thanks. That's a great question. And I think for me, as for many of us in healthcare, the journey starts with curiosity, and at least for me, it ends with purpose. From a young age, I've always been fascinated with how biology works and even more by how it fails in disease and how we can discover ways to intervene in that. And so that's really what brought me into healthcare is this intersection between science and the purpose of being able to have an impact on people's health. And the realization that this is one of the fields that allows you to work on something that's complex, that's deeply human, and at the same time really globally relevant. So this is something with the unique intersection that allows you, at least in the best of cases, to literally change patients' lives. And that is something that motivates me day in, day out. But on top of that, there's something else. For me, it's the people. It's a field that attracts a lot of people who care very deeply about their purpose and who are willing to go through the complexity, the regulation, and the uncertainty that comes with working in the field. And because of that, there is a lot of camaraderie. There is a lot of intellectual challenge. And at the end of the day, there is that promise that there is a patient waiting for all of the hard work to pay out. So there's that tangible impact and the promise of being able to contribute to something larger than myself at least. And that's what keeps me motivated every day.
I love your answer. Lindsay, can you comment as well? I know you're in the biotech industry. You've had a very prolific career. I would love to get your perspective on how you got to where you are today and what really motivated you earlier in your career.
I think for me, I couldn't agree more with Angela. For me, it's that passion and motivation that we have inside the industry to work together, especially in the cell and gene therapy sector where everything is new and evolving so fast, is that there really is this collaboration and core competence that's coming together and knowing that we can't do it alone. We have to do it as a team for the patient. And that is our game, is to basically to make a difference, make an impact that it is felt by everybody that suffers with a particular disease or health problem. So for me, it's that passion to have an impact and to make a difference. But I also come from a design background. So for me, it's also the challenge and the problem solving aspect that I really enjoy and motivates me, is taking that kind of problem concept in the world and saying, okay, how can we deal with this? How can we make a difference? And how can this evolve over time to get better and better so that we're addressing more and more diseases and making a huger impact with time?
Yeah, and Lindsay, I also wanted to go back just for a second because you have a fascinating background and you have a tremendous amount of entrepreneurial success. And I wanted to get back to the idea that very often this is something that's not always natural for women. When we look at entrepreneurial success, I think it's fair to say that perhaps sometimes it comes easier to men versus women. So, why do you think this is, and how can we encourage more women to think more entrepreneurially?
I mean, I'm not sure if women are not so entrepreneurial. I think entrepreneurship for me comes from innovation and ideas and concepts. And there I would say women in general are extremely innovative and creative. But I think from what I've seen and what I felt personally, it's almost like a lack of self belief that you can make that real and you can realize that innovation. And there's for me where there's a true need for support for women to say, yes, believe in yourself, believe in your ideas. You can do it. You will face resistance. You will fail at some point, but that's okay. That's normal. That's part of the process, and you grow and learn from that. So I think it's to give people that space, to give them a supportive environment and show them that anything is possible, that you can take those ideas from your mind and make it into a business. And I think that's where we as leaders have a huge responsibility, is to pass that knowledge on to the next generation and show our own experiences, show our own vulnerabilities, and say, but I picked myself up and I kept going, and this is why I'm here. I wasn't born into success.
Absolutely. And, you know, I will get back to the idea of sort of being a role model and a mentor and healthcare leadership and how we can support other women. But I wanted to just go back to Angela because, Angela, last time we spoke, you mentioned to me, you coined this term, which I love, of being an intrapreneur, being an entrepreneur, but within a corporate setting. So I would love to get your perspective on this and your career, where I know we talked about all of the challenges you faced and how you had to overcome those hurdles and really become a true entrepreneur within a corporate setting.
Thanks. And I want to build on what Lindsay said. I couldn't actually agree more. I don't think women are any less entrepreneurial than men. And I don't think that women are any less willing to take risks that come with being entrepreneurial. What I do think is that we operate in systems where risk and risk taking is interpreted differently depending on who it is who's taking it. So let me take it a step back. When men take a big bet, and if that doesn't land, it's often called boldness or vision. When women do the same, it can be seen as being off plan. Oh, she tried, wasn't good enough. And that's what I mean a little bit by the risk tolerance being judged to some extent through the gender lens. The same actions are read differently and tell a different story. So women have a greater tendency to evolve toward precision, preparation, and reliability, which are very real strengths. They have a downside in that they make us less visible as the entrepreneurial builders. But when you're in the innovation space, and Lindsay spoke to this very nicely already, entrepreneurship is built on innovation. Innovation doesn't come from certainty, right? It's a white space. You're specifically in the gap. You're in a space that no one's claimed yet. So when we reflect on my experience as what I term an intrapreneur in a corporate setting, the turning point for me was realizing that identifying those white spaces is leadership, and it can lead to innovation, and it is the entrepreneurial act. Seeing what's missing, having ideas about how to make things better, and then having the courage to start building them. So, as an entrepreneur, I've learned that you have to just get comfortable with ambiguity. And that precision, the polished presentation, the preparation that we may more naturally wish to gravitate towards can get in the way of that. And innovation is inherently messy. It isn't polished, it's not precise, and it takes time to unfold into something tangible that you have to take people on board with you. That's the other angle of being a leader, an intrapreneurial leader or an entrepreneurial leader is working through the messiness, the journey. So if we want more women to think and act entrepreneurially, we have to change a little bit the language that we use to define success. Entrepreneurial thinking is a way of leading with curiosity, with courage to experiment and adapt, and as Lindsay pointed out, also to fail and pick yourself up along the way. It's not about being the loudest person in the room, but allowing yourself the courage to step up and potentially rethink the room itself. Those are some of the learnings that I've made on my journey into and through entrepreneurship. And it is that curiosity, that willingness to experiment and to adapt that I would characterize as performance metrics that we underutilize, especially for women. It's a way for us to rephrase what success can look like, not to see experimentation as a deviation from performance, but really what needs to happen is that we start to reward that kind of thinking. And that is something that we can do through leadership, but also through mentorship, through raising visibility around the entrepreneurial acts that women do wish to take, but may feel insecure about. And so that we have women truly participating in innovation, shaping the way the industry moves.
Yeah, and I love what you just said. And I wanted to just follow up on that because I really think it's twofold. I think it's reframing, like you said, the success metrics, but then also tapping into what motivates women, right? Because I think success comes when people are really passionate about what they believe in, right? And what they want to do. So, can you also comment from your experience and what typically the differences between what typically drives in women versus men in particular?
It's obviously not a clear-cut distinction. The women are inherently deeply motivated by purpose, by building something that is of service to others, to create better solutions, to impact in the healthcare space, to impact patients' lives, to impact health outcomes, to improve quality of life. Those are deeply personal, human motivating factors that don't, in the first instance, look like a performance metric. Men tend, and I generalize very much here, men tend to be a lot more comfortable in framing ambition through the business and structural language that's associated with any industry. And it isn't that women don't think that way, but would perhaps frame their ambitions in a more abstract way, thinking about outcomes rather than the hard metrics that are part of the journey leading to outcomes. And I think that's a little bit where the disconnect happens, is that the languages used by men and women can be quite different, even if the intended outcomes are the same. And so there is a perception different in different motivating factors and different ways of thinking about the business. Now, the power lies in bringing these two together and really encouraging both sides to open up to really bringing the business hard metrics and the purpose together to framing outcomes that blend purpose and the hard numbers.
Absolutely. And I wanted to get back to you, Lindsay, also, because basically following on the same theme, right? Perhaps this is also one of the reasons that we don't see more women in the C-suite, right? When we look across the globe, I think it's fair to say that there are many women who are executives, right? We've come a long way, but when you look at that C-suite, there's still more men than women across the board. So how do we motivate more women to really go after these roles to get to those roles, and at the same time create a supportive environment and almost create a legacy for future leaders who are women. I'd love to get your thoughts on it, Lindsay.
I mean, I agree with what Angela's saying. I think there's, men and women were genetically we're made differently, but we both have our strengths, and it's about intertwining those strengths that will bring like a true success to the business environment, in my opinion. And I see what women have to offer as somewhat superpowers. And what I've been told by male colleagues is sometimes a little bit intimidating is the fact that we are so empathic, and that our drive and our passion, especially within the healthcare sector, lies around the fact that our drive is the impact that we'll have, the kind of the long-term vision, the not the here and now and the finances, but what can we achieve for the world? But we're also very good at reading the room. And I think that's something that we've learned, we've evolved to do, because let's face it, as a minority, in that board, in that C-suite, we are different. We dress differently, we look different, and we have to get comfortable with that environment. So, intrinsically, you will read the room differently because you want to basically gauge how you're being perceived. So I really think it's about saying to young women coming up, you are different, but those differences are strengths. You are bringing something new to the table, and that's how you should be selling yourself. Have faith that you are bringing something new. You are not another grey suit in the room. You are bringing a different angle, a different perspective, a different skill set, a different passion and objective. And it's all about how does that align with the company. And something that I've felt is that once you've earned that respect of those men in the boardroom, your gender's not seen anymore. You're a person, you're a personality, you're an idea driver, you have a goal, and you have your own role. And then gender's somewhat lost into the system, sort of thing. But it's accepting that the way the system is right now, yes, you're going to have to work probably twice as hard as a man because you are different. And that's not unique for women. That's unique for any person that is slightly out of the how to say, I mean, just out of how we stereotype, basically. So I think that it's about having that strength, having that self-belief, knowing your own unique selling point and using that, because you are the strength. You are the part of the innovation you're bringing.
And, I know we talked a little bit also about you obviously now live and work in Sweden. And I think it's fair to say that the Scandinavian countries are perhaps a bit more advanced and deserve sort of as a good blueprint of a society that's really allowed women to thrive in really, executive roles. So I'd love to hear your take on also some of perhaps the cultural differences that exist across different countries and markets and really across the world.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very, very lucky to live in the Nordic region. They are extremely advanced, and their social system is very geared towards supporting women, and to women not only in leadership but in working in general, and having that support around them so that they don't have to choose between a family and career, that they really truly can have it all. I've worked in the UK, and I've worked in Germany and Finland as well, and there are distinct cultural differences. It's not only in how the social system is set up, but there are cultural differences in the way that we're raising our children, how we're educating them, and their social situations. Um, and I think that is something that I've seen from Sweden, is the fact that it starts at a very young age to ingrain into children from a very early age about equality, and that anybody has the possibility to drive their own kind of future and where they want to go, and that the system just gives you the infrastructure to be able to do that. It's a support. So I think a lot of what I've learned from Sweden is that it's all about how we educate our children and we educate the next generation, in how to perceive different genders, how to perceive different roles, that there is no traditional role anymore. That's, it's the individual and the individual's personality that should be seen. So I would definitely say that is a huge impact, and the social system around it just supports you to get to the goal.
Absolutely. And Angela, what do you think? I mean, I know you live in Austria. What has been your perception around this?
Well, I've also worked in quite a few parts of Europe and globally, and what I would say is it's striking from a global perspective that for us in Europe we've built equality into most of the structures that define our societies, policies, our systems. In principle, everything is designed to be fair. Um, the structure, though, as Lindsay rightly points out, doesn't automatically create that individually felt permission to act and to be seen as equal. There is still this quiet code of order, of tradition, if you will, that where you succeed by staying within the system, within the tradition. And while that makes things stable, it doesn't lean towards adaptability. And what is today's reality is that women feel that a lot of the world is moving on, is evolving at different paces, and that individual capability wants to unfold. It wants to have the stage to act on, and you don't necessarily want to be rewarded for precision and for staying within a system and not disrupting. In fact, what we're talking about here is entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship inherently is a very individual creative act. It's potentially disruptive. So if you're leaning that way, you're not going to be at your best in a system that rewards stability. So obviously in the Nordics, the system has evolved to a place where equality very much is ingrained in everyday life and how people are raised and work with each other. And what I love about that is this sort of sense of shared responsibility. And I want to emphasize that point because I think that's where there is room to grow, especially when looking in on some of the systems from a place that is more traditional. Um, where there is this flatter leadership, be it culturally or ingrained in a corporate system, psychological safety can evolve. And these sort of very rigid hierarchical systems inherently aren't completely psychologically safe. You have to work your way up. And that notion of having to work your way up is of course what makes it harder for women, where traditionally women haven't been at the top. And so they have to lean towards mimicking traditional ways of dress, speech, or all the trappings that come with being in a more elevated position. What I would like to see is that we have that evolving space globally where the trends of more openness, of flatter societies, flatter company hierarchies start to become an accepted global norm. As we are individuals, we want to bring our whole selves to the entrepreneurial space. We want to have the stage to act out on the intentions with the teams that we build and want to work with. And that's a very liberating act, a very liberating thought, but it is at the same time also hard work. And that is something that, if you're coming up through a system that is more traditional, that you will have experienced, and that will color a little bit how you go about your leadership. And the opportunity in today's world lies in us being able to share very openly those experiences we've had, pass them on, and maybe um, raise awareness for some of the watch outs that can make certain things harder on your entrepreneurial journey.
I think you have just beautifully encapsulated the goal of our entire podcast series because that really, is the goal to, inspire and pave the way. So I want to get to our last question, and that's a very big question. And I want to sort of I would love to sort of look into the future. So, Lindsay, I'll start with you. What do you think the future holds?
I mean, I think we're building a foundation, and as time moves on, it's getting better and better for women, and so we need to continue on this track. And the way I see that we need to do that is by, as Angela said, we have to share our experiences. We have to mentor. It's our responsibility to do that, to offer that to young women coming through, but not only young women, but also men, so that they understand these gaps because it's important they see them as well. um, I'm very lucky to be part of a society that sits inside of the Stockholm region called Vilda, and that's for female leaders to get together, share experiences, learn, grow, and support one another. And I think initiatives like that are central to the success of moving forward. That I mean, we're not there yet. We've got a lot to do, but I think a lot of building on what we have, but also with this psychological safety that Angela talked about, giving women the core skills to deal with power struggles, discrimination, even those small little comments that are made in different meetings and things like that, where, how to take that not personally, so that you build and you grow, but you're not feeling attacked inside. So I think all of these things are things that we need to build on, and education and cultural awareness, they go hand in hand with that. And as I said before, I think the social systems, they are evolving slowly, but they're there as a structure. But I think it's up to us as individuals and people. Policy alone will not solve this problem. We need to support other women, and that, I feel, is a responsibility that you take when you become a female leader.
Angela, any concluding thoughts on your end?
Oh, beautifully said, Lindsay. And I think that is something that, as a female leader, can't be emphasized enough. Is feeling not just gratitude for personal achievements, but also paying it forward. What would I say that the future holds, and what would I say to young men and women entering into the workforce? Learn the system, whichever it is that you're in, but don't let it define you. That is one of my life's lessons: is don't let it define you. Every organization, every culture has its own inherent, perhaps even latent rules. They may not even be overt, but learn what they are, understand them, become fluent in the language that you need to speak to be successful in that system, but don't let it cost you your own personal brand, your own personal voice, and your own personal goals. And I think that is the first thing that is the foundation for going into a workplace, wanting visibility and wanting to grow, is that you learn to navigate it. Get comfortable, get comfortable with being visible long before maybe you even feel ready for that. That is something that mentoring and networks can help a lot with. Traditionally, many women have waited until everything is perfect. It's something that we strive naturally towards. Is we seek safety, and in this space, it is actually a disadvantage. So visibility itself is not the price, but it is where you go to build your credibility. You have to put yourself out there. You have to make yourself visible for what you're striving for, what you believe in, who you want to work with, and what you're aiming to achieve. So grab the microphone, knowing that, first few times may not be coherent when you speak, that the mentoring and the networking around that are key elements to building up that confidence that you need to have. Well, what I would say is alliances are key. So mentoring is great for those one-to-ones where you want to build out the thoughts that are in your mind, but an alliance around you is key to being able to navigate through any system. The people who know you, the people who have worked with you or who would recommend you to work in a certain space, that's essential. So going into the future, I think there has to be a strong a strong understanding is that we're all on a stage, and we all need to network with each other to find, if you will, the right cast to work with, and that will evolve over time. So we also need to take an open-minded approach to that and be open to learning and staying curious.
Yeah, and I feel very personally fortunate and grateful that I feel like I have added both of you to my professional network and alliance. So, with having said that, I want to thank both of you sincerely for participating. I think it was a fascinating discussion, and I look forward to hearing lots of thoughts and comments from our listeners. And from everybody who is listening, thank you so much for joining us. And please join us for our next episode of our Hear From Her podcast. Thank you.
To our listeners around the world, thanks for joining us today. Tune in as we continue our journey to amplify the voices of women leaders in healthcare. Hear From Her is brought to you by Medscape Education. Please subscribe to Hear From Her on your preferred podcast channel and follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, remember to lift as you rise.